Hey YouTube, buckle up because I've got an insane story from Reddit's RR Relationship Rocks advice that's gonna blow your mind. Get ready because this young woman was kicked out of her house at 22, accused of being disrespectful and rebellious. But get this, 18 years of lies, a betrayal by a friend you won't believe, and an epic revenge that will leave you speechless. This architect's story is so wild, it even involves police corruption. Witness her journey from heartbreak to empowerment, from disappointment to triumph, and from betrayal to a memorable revenge. Let's dive in! The door slammed shut, the sound echoing the emptiness that now consumed my heart. 18 years. 18 years under the same roof, breathing the same air, and suddenly tossed out like a piece of trash. The accusation. Disrespectful. Rebellious. A disappointment. Words that echoed in my ears like a final judgment. My father, his face red with rage, his eyes filled with a disappointment so profound it froze me to the bone. My mother, silent, watching everything with a coldness I never imagined possible. I was 22, a newly graduated architect, and all I wanted was their support, a friendly shoulder to celebrate my achievements. Instead, I received an old suitcase and a goodbye. In that moment, alone on the cold street in the early morning, rage consumed me. Rage that afterward gave way to a fierce determination. I would show them. I would show the world. I would rise alone, build my empire brick by brick, and they would bitterly regret what they had done. The first few months were hell. I slept in hostels, worked 3 jobs simultaneously, subsisting on instant noodles and cold coffee. The longing for my family, however painful, was a lesser driving force than my thirst to prove my worth. I was strong, resilient, and I wouldn't let myself break. Thanks to my degree and a sprinkle of luck, I landed a job at a renowned architecture firm. My talent was undeniable, and I quickly stood out among my colleagues. Within 2 years, I was leading multi-million-dollar projects, earning a salary that surpassed the wildest dreams of my previous life. I bought a modern apartment, a flawless car, and my life, once in ruins, blossomed in a way I never imagined possible. Then came the phone call. My mother, her voice tearful, hesitant. My father was sick, gravely ill. They needed me. My heart ached. Despite everything, the love for them still burned in my chest, an underground ember that time hadn't been able to extinguish. Despite the pain, the injustice, I felt a knot in my throat, a mix of compassion and resentment. I had the power now, the strength, the independence, and I was in a position to decide whether or not I would forgive them. I returned home. The family mansion, larger and more imposing than I remembered, greeted me with a chilling silence. My father, lying in a hospital bed, looking like a ghost of himself. My mother by his side, her eyes swollen with tears, but her gaze contained something that made me suspicious. False remorse? Calculated manipulation? They welcomed me with tight hugs, words of love and regret, vows of change, and promises of a different future. But something didn't add up. There was a coldness in their eyes, a tension in the air that kept me on high alert. I felt something was wrong, something was being hidden. And then that night, while everyone slept, I discovered the truth. A document forgotten on my father's desk, containing information that left me petrified, frozen to the bone, and certain that my return home wouldn't be anything like I expected. The truth about my expulsion, the truth about his illness, and the truth about what they really planned. What I read in that document would change my life forever. And the worst part? I wasn't prepared for it. What did I discover? My body trembled as I read the printed words, each letter a stab to my heart. It wasn't just an illness. It was something much worse. An elaborate financial scheme, an impending bankruptcy disguised as a terminal illness. My father, the man I had always admired, was involved in shady dealings, and my expulsion wasn't an act of anger, but a calculated maneuver to protect me. Protect me? From what? A chill ran down my spine. The coldness in my mother's eyes wasn't remorse. It was fear. Fear of me. Fear of my discoveries. Fear of the consequences of their actions. They had used me. Used my absence to cover their debts. Their irresponsibility. Their greed. I was the missing piece in their dirty game. the guarantee of a future they couldn't build on their own. The rage, which I had managed to control over the past few years, returned with full force, a devastating tsunami threatening to drown me. But mixed with the rage, there was another feeling, deeper, more terrifying: betrayal. The betrayal of trust, of family, of the love I had for them. Were they the people I knew? Or were they just masks, characters in a grotesque and manipulated play? I spent the night awake, the document in my hand, the words burning my eyes. Each line was an insult, a slap to my soul. Their plan was to use my inheritance, my name, my reputation to save themselves. They had groomed me to be the solution to their problems. And my return? Just another step in their plan. Morning arrived cold and gray, reflecting the whirlwind of emotions inside me. My father slept, his face pale, his breathing labored. My mother was in the kitchen preparing breakfast with an unsettling calm. I watched her, trying to decipher what was going on in her mind. Did she know I had discovered the truth? Or was she still in her game of manipulation? I approached her cautiously, feigning calmness while my mind seethed with plans of revenge. She seemed surprised but not scared. The conversation was tense, full of half-truths and evasions. She tried to convince me that it was all a misunderstanding, a confusion. But I didn't swallow the bait. I knew the truth, and I was determined to use my intelligence and my power to get my revenge. As I planned my strategy, a new detail in the document caught my attention. A signature, a familiar name, but with a slight difference. A name I knew, but that wasn't exactly as I remembered it. A name that took me back to my past, to a secret my family kept under lock and key, and that now finally was about to be revealed. A secret that could change everything. And then, as I called to confirm the signature, the phone rang. It was an unknown number, a raspy and threatening voice on the other end of the line, saying only 3 words that left me frozen with terror. "You know too much." The call dropped, and I, alone, not knowing what to do, found myself completely in the dark, not knowing who my enemy was, nor who my allies were. Who was really threatening me, and what did they want? Fear, cold and viscous, spread through my body like a spider web. "You know too much." The words echoed in my head, a sinister mantra that trapped me in a spiral of paranoia. I looked around, every shadow seeming to transform into a potential threat. The family mansion, once a symbol of comfort, was now an oppressive prison. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drum announcing an impending storm. The raspy voice, the veiled threat. Who would be capable of threatening me? The mafia? An old enemy of my father's? Or would it be someone closer, someone I knew? The possibility froze me. My mother, my father, even debilitated, could have more cards up his sleeve. Or would it be someone I didn't even suspect? I needed to take a deep breath, calm the whirlwind of thoughts. I needed to think strategically, act cautiously. The revenge so burning in my chest needed to be planned, precise and relentless. First, I needed to understand who was behind the threat. The signature on the document, that almost familiar name, was the key. I started investigating. Hours passed, immersed in online searches, scouring old records, looking for any information that could lead me to that name. With each clue, each detail, the puzzle formed, revealing a web of lies and betrayals more complex than I could ever have imagined. The name, slightly altered, belonged to a business partner of my father's, a man I only knew by sight from old photos. An influential, powerful man with shady connections. But why would he threaten me? The answer came in the form of an anonymous email, an encrypted file that left me breathless. Inside it, photos, conversations, transcripts of phone calls, documents proving the extent of my father's fraudulent scheme. And something worse. My mother was more involved than I could ever have imagined. She wasn't just an accomplice, she was the mastermind behind it all. My body trembled. The betrayal was a sharp blade, tearing my heart to pieces. The woman I considered my mother, the woman who raised me, loved me, or so I believed, was a ruthless manipulator, a cold and calculating criminal. Tears streamed down my face, mixing with the rage that consumed me. I was alone, surrounded by enemies. The rage, however, soon gave way to a cold, terrifying feeling, understanding. I understood their game now. They didn't want me dead, not exactly. They wanted me silenced, controlled. They needed me to clean up the mess they had created, to save their skins. And I, the rebellious daughter, the successful architect, would be the perfect scapegoat. My revenge plan needed to change. I couldn't simply expose them, not in the way I had planned. I needed to be smarter, more cunning, more relentless. I would need to play their game, using their own rules against them. I would need to use my intelligence, my knowledge of architecture to create a perfect trap. As I planned my next move, a new fear struck me, deeper and colder than any other. A fear that came from inside the house. A sound, an almost imperceptible noise coming from my father's room. A sound that chilled me to the bone. A sound of light. Stealthy footsteps approaching. I turned slowly, my heart pounding in my chest, and I saw the shadow of a figure approaching my door. And then the door opened, revealing a familiar silhouette. But it wasn't my mother. It was someone I knew from my past, someone I thought I would never see again, and who now carried a gun. The air became thick, heavy as lead. My blood froze in my veins. It was her, Isabel, my childhood best friend, the confidant of all my secrets, the only person I thought I could blindly trust. And now, there she was, standing in the doorway with a gun in her hand. The gun pointed directly at me. A scream caught in my throat. It couldn't be, not Isabel. She was the only person I had, or so I thought. Years had passed, our lives had taken different paths, but the memory of our friendship, our mutual loyalty was unshakable. Or so I thought. You know too much, don't you? Her voice was cold, without a trace of the sweet melody I remembered. It was a harsh, metallic voice that made me feel a shiver run through my whole body. Her eyes, once bright and full of life, were dull, cold, like two pieces of ice. My brain tried to process the information. Isabel. How? Why? My mother's betrayal was already an open wound, but Isabel's was a mortal stab, piercing my heart. My world was crumbling. I couldn't understand. I couldn't believe it. I don't understand, I managed to murmur, my voice weak, trembling. The words felt like cotton in my mouth. Without strength, without weight, I was paralyzed, trapped in a snare from which I couldn't escape. Isabel took a step forward. The gun still pointed at me. Your father made a deal with people who shouldn't be crossed. And you, dear, know too much to stay alive. The words were cold, calculated, without any trace of emotion. It was as if she were reciting a script, playing a role she had rehearsed countless times. The rage, the pain, the betrayal, everything mixed in my chest, forming an explosive cocktail of emotions. I needed to think. I needed to act. I couldn't. Let her kill me. But how? How to fight against a friend, against someone I knew so well? You're being used, Isabel, I tried to argue, desperately searching for a glimmer of hope. A point of connection with the friend I knew. They deceived you. You're on the wrong side of this story. She laughed, a dry and cruel sound that echoed in the room. Deceived? I'm the one in control now, and you're gonna help me get what I want. Her smile was sinister, a mask hiding a terrifying emptiness. She came closer, the gun moving slightly in her hand, like a snake about to strike. My brain worked, frantically. I needed a plan, and fast. I needed to find a way out, a loophole in this desperate situation. I looked around the room, searching for something, anything that could help me. My gaze fell on the antique porcelain vase, an object I had always admired, a symbol of my family's wealth and tradition. An object that, ironically, could now be my salvation. With surprising speed, I threw myself to the side, dodging the trajectory of the gun. The shot hit the wall, the bang echoing through the house. At the same time, I grabbed the vase and threw it with all my might towards Isabel. She dodged, but the impact unbalanced her and she fell. The gun rolled onto the floor. It was a chance, a small, minimal chance. I ran to pick up the gun, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I was about to win, to get even, to put an end to this nightmare. But before I could react, I felt a strong hand grab my arm from behind, pulling me down. I turned and saw my father, debilitated, but with a look of fury in his eyes, holding a knife. He smiled, a macabre and cruel smile. Shuai's gun fell from my hand and he picked it up. Now it was 2 against 1, and the threat was greater than ever. I was surrounded with no escape, trapped in a deadly game where the only certainty was my imminent death, or not. Just as I was about to be hit, I heard a bang from the window, a bang that indicated we weren't alone. After all, who else was hiding in that house? And who would be my savior or my executioner? The impact of Isabel's body hitting the floor was muffled by the deafening sound of my own heartbeat. The knife in my father's hand gleamed in the dim light of the room, a deadly reflection that paralyzed me. He smiled, a cruel and calculating smile that froze me to the bone. It wasn't just the disease that consumed him. It was the evil, the thirst for power and revenge. And I was the target. My brain in panic worked at 1,000 miles an hour, searching for a way out, a strategy. The gun was in my father's hand. Isabel was unconscious but not dead. I needed to act fast before they could eliminate me. But how? My mind searched for a plan, a strategy, anything that could save me. Father, I tried to say, my voice a thread of sound, but the only response was the cold gleam in his eyes. He wasn't the man I knew, the man I loved. He was a stranger, a monster disguised as a father. He was the personification of evil, and I was at his mercy. A new sound, this time louder, closer, broke the tension. A crash of breaking glass, followed by heavy and rapid footsteps climbing the stairs. More intruders, the situation was already chaotic. And now more enemies. What was happening? My father, distracted by the noise, slightly lowered his guard. It was my chance. With a quick, unpredictable movement, I used the momentum of my body to push him away, causing him to lose his balance. The knife fell to the floor with a metallic clang that seemed to echo in my ears. The fight was short, brutal. My father, despite his illness, still had strength, but I was more agile, smarter. I used my strength and my intelligence to defend myself, to survive. We managed to knock over a heavy piece of furniture onto him, immobilizing him long enough for me to get up and run. I stumbled down the stairs, my heart pounding like a hammer, my lungs burning. The sound of heavy footsteps approached, and I could hear voices shouting, arguing. It was a deafening confusion. A battle between different forces, a whirlwind of chaos that clustered in my house. I reached the front door, my hands trembling, searching for the doorknob. But before I could open it, I felt a shock, a strong hand. I grabbed my arm tightly, pulling me back. I turned and I saw a tall, imposing man with a cold and calculating gaze. He had the same look in his eyes that I knew all too well. It was my father's business partner, the man from the Anonymous email, the man behind the threat. "You can't escape," he said, his voice cold as ice. "You know too much." His hand tightened its grip on my arm, the pain spreading through my body. It was the end. I was surrounded with no escape, trapped in a web of lies and betrayals. But before he could take me away, a new bang, louder this time, made the house tremble. The front door burst open violently, revealing a tactical team, armed police officers storming the house. They had guns pointed at all of us. The confusion was total. Screaming, shots, loud orders. In the midst of the chaos, I managed to notice that Isabel was being taken away in handcuffs, her gaze fixed on me, a look of regret, of betrayal. I couldn't decipher it. My father was being arrested, his expression of fury transformed into a look of total defeat, and I, relieved but confused, was surrounded by police officers with an uncertain future. Was it a victory, a defeat? I had survived, yes, but who was really behind it all? Whom could I really trust? And why did the police show up at that precise moment? The answer to these questions was in a small detail, a detail I'd noticed in the midst of the confusion, in the midst of the dust and smoke. As a police officer led me out of the house, I saw fallen on the floor among the debris and bodies a small object, a cell phone with a cracked screen but still displaying a message on the screen, an encrypted message that made me freeze with fear and surprise, a message that revealed the true identity of the real mastermind behind all this. Someone I knew very well, someone I would never suspect, and someone who was much closer than I could have imagined. And that person was among the police officers arresting me. The camera focused on my expression of terror, with the cell phone in my hand. And then the video cut. The screen of the cracked cell phone showed a single message, encrypted with a complex algorithm, but which I, with my knowledge of programming and cryptography, managed to decipher in a few seconds. The sender? The chief? Inspector of the police station who had coordinated the operation, the same one who was leading me to the patrol car. The message was short, direct. Mission accomplished. The inheritance is ours. A shock ran through my body. The betrayal was deeper than I could ever have imagined. It wasn't just my family. The corruption extended to the police force. The operation wasn't a rescue, but a carefully orchestrated trap to silence me and seize my inheritance, used as bait to capture the criminals, but which in fact was the bait itself. They used the law to protect themselves. The police car, which previously represented safety and justice, now seemed like a mobile cell heading towards my own condemnation. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming, an unbearable weight. I had survived my family, my friend, but I couldn't escape the web of corruption that enveloped the entire city. The following months were a bureaucratic nightmare, trapped in a legal labyrinth, fighting against a system rotten to the core. My reputation, once immaculate, was in tatters. My story transformed into a macabre fairy tale where the princess doesn't find the prince, but rather a dark conspiracy that condemns her. But my determination, forged in the fire of betrayal and injustice, didn't fade. I used my intelligence, my knowledge of the law and architecture, to build a relentless defense strategy. With the help of an incorruptible lawyer, a rare diamond in a sea of dirt, I managed to expose the systemic corruption. The operation was unmasked, and the chief inspector and his accomplices were arrested. My family was condemned, the truth was revealed, and I finally could breathe freely. Justice, though late, was served. My inheritance, recovered, was donated to a charity, a symbolic gesture of rebirth and hope. I built a new life, far from the burden of the past, but carrying the mark of the experience, the scar on my heart. An eternal reminder that trust is a precious commodity and that betrayal can come from where we least expect it. I rebuilt my career stronger and wiser. Now, years later, looking back, I wonder, was it worth it? The struggle, the pain, the betrayal, all this to get here. I became a stronger, more resilient person, but the scar of betrayal remains, an indelible mark on my soul. I built an empire, but true wealth lies in freedom and justice. So, Reddit, was I the victim, or was I just a pawn in a much bigger game? And more importantly, will I ever be able to truly trust anyone again? Hey everyone, what an amazing ending, right? Justice, or rather, revenge, was served ice cold. I hope you had as much fun as I did telling this epic Reddit story. Don't forget to like this video and show everyone you enjoyed this avalanche of poetic justice. And if you're not already subscribed, hit that red button now and ring the bell so you don't miss any videos with stories as insane as this one. Thanks for watching and see you next time.